along the road, and it should be Christmas Day for you. So Merry Christmas to you.
Merry Christmas.
I'm Pastor Josh here in Kingston, New Hampshire.
And I'm Katie, the Children's Discipleship Director.
And we just are excited to be with you on this Christmas season with Along the Road and how we just bring our faith together into practical ways of life. We've had a good Christmas season. I've been talking about our personalities. Last week we talked about the quiet side of Christmas and some of that contemplation. But Christmas Day, Christmas Eve, one of the things I think about a lot at those times is reading stories with my children.
Oh, I always think about that.
Yes. We love books here and different types of books. So I said, let's bring out some of our Christmas story books. And we have my favorite and your favorite. And they're, I don't know if any of them are the standard type of books that tell the Christmas story. Mine, I don't think any of mine really tell the whole Christmas story. But I've loved these stories for sure, reading them out loud with children. And hopefully, well, the one we get to that I want to save to the end is my favorite one that I read even without the kids. It's so good. You can read it out loud, but it has so many layers to it that as an adult, when you're reading with the children, it's very, very well thought out. So, yeah, I'm assuming you have some Christmas books as well.
Oh, yes.
Oh, yes. So, yeah, mostly for younger children, I think. But, you know, you can have all ages. I think it's just a good habit to get into reading. Mm-hmm. Growing up, my parents read out loud a lot. And the Christmas story itself was read in our house on Christmas Eve. And we'd read it out loud and share reading parts of it. So I think it's good. I think it's good to read out loud.
Yes.
To children. And even as they get older, changing the level of the book. Mm-hmm. Reading a story out loud changes the way you hear and know the story. Mm-hmm. I've read adult books out loud, mm-hmm. and it changes that as well. So people are probably more used to that now with the audible books, and they would listen to them. But we don't do that with someone else. Usually that's just you and your ears. Yeah. The sharing of that experience is interesting as well. So what do you do with reading out loud? I know you love books, but now this is more children's Christmas books. So what brought you to the books that you're bringing to us?
Oh, well, sometimes it's because I was looking for it, because I needed something like I wanted a story to turn into a skit for a Christmas pageant kind of thing, or someone gave it to me, or I just stumbled across it.
Yeah.
So I contemplated bringing How the Grinch Stole Christmas.
Yeah, of course.
But I didn't, because I had other ones. I figured, everybody knows that one.
Yes, yeah. So there's some standards out there you could say that with. Yeah, of course.
Yes.
So what made these come to the top? Like, what's your first one that you...
All right, so my first one is actually a chapter book.
Okay.
Although it is small.
Very small chapter book, I guess.
Yeah, it is, which makes it easy to get through.
Okay.
But it's a lovely story. It's by one of my favorite authors, Elizabeth Goudge. And it's called I Saw Three Ships, and it's set, it's set in England, but we would call it colonial times.
Yeah.
1700s.
Yeah.
About a little girl who's gone to live with her aunts. And it's just a neat story, and it includes giving and thinking of others and so forth. Elizabeth Goudge was actually a pastor's kid. And so her books aren't overtly Christian, but they've got a lot of
themes in there
that would fit.
Oh, very nice.
So this is a fun one. On the back it says, Polly knows this is going to be a very special Christmas Eve. She wants to leave the doors to Holly Cottage open. Then maybe the wise men will come to visit. But our aunts will not let the doors stay open. There is no one in the house to protect them. No man.
Yeah.
Little do they know just how special this Christmas Day will be. 3 ships will sail into the harbor. Who will step ashore?
Interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah,
so,
very nice. Very
fun.
Nice.
So this one was a gift. St. Nicholas the Giftgiver by Ned Bustard. So this is about the original St. Nick.
Yes. Yeah.
And set in Turkey and this one is nice. It's very simple pictures. Very
so this is younger children.
This is definitely younger children.
Yeah.
So, yes.
So it talks a little bit about the Nicholas, or one of the Saint Nicholas that was part of some creeds and part of some councils that had come together. There's different stories about it. So, he would have been there. I know he defended against heresies as well of the church. And then this is more about the gift giving side of it.
That's right.
Okay.
That's right. How, without saying this is how Santa Claus story came about, it's like a mini biography of how he grew up and how he developed this love of giving. So, yeah.
My favorite story is probably not in here, of the one that people talk of St. Nicholas in defending heresies, is someone was being heretical. And the story is that he actually punched the person. Hard to verify how much of that is true or just legend, but it's my favorite story of St. Nicholas.
Now, what appeals to that about you?
Is that, I mean, it's about gift giving, but like that he was so firm on and passionate about Christ being fully man and fully God, bodily resurrected. And the heresies at the time were about this higher knowledge or Gnosticism, or Christ was just a spirit in this world. And he was very firm that the word did not teach that. And these heresies were driving the church to different places. And that's part of why the creeds came, the Nicene Creed came. But being there to defend that, as much as giving gifts is important, standing clearly on God's word is important. I don't think that means, though, that we should be punching people. I just love that piece of the story that says he was adamant about protecting the faith and protecting the very base of the faith, not a denomination, not something else, just the very base of who Christ is. And how do we celebrate Christmas, the God become man, if you say he's a spirit? So kind of have lay that down there. Does that mean he actually did punch? I don't know. I just like that part. It's like a legend that I really enjoy to kind of sneak in there sometimes, just to kind of, I don't know, make people shake it up a little bit,
How far would you go?
How far would you go to protect the faith, to protect the most basic parts of the faith?
Right.
Right. And so, and giving is a response to the receiving of the gift of eternal life. So, you still have that part of it. But I like that. It's not just, we go out and give gifts. There's a reason behind where he pulls that through. Right. And it's that receiving of the gift that Christ has given. I don't know how much you defend your faith that way. Maybe not at work, not a place to do it. But this would have been leaders of areas that were gathering together and religious leaders that were saying, oh, no, maybe he wasn't. This isn't like a workplace thing. This is people who are, leading churches or leading regions, a special gathering, and fighting over this, what the faith was. So always piques my mind when I think of that. So, St. Nicholas. Sorry.
That's right.
Not the Christmas part of the story, but that's what happens in my head.
That's okay. That's okay.
Yeah. What else do you have?
All right. So then I have 2 collections of stories.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
Yes. So the first one is called A Christmas Collection by Patricia St. John. So she was a missionary kid.
Okay.
And then herself spent over 40 years in North Africa as a nurse. Oh, yeah. So this is actually, and she's written a lot of children's books.
Okay.
Chapter books. In fact, I
don't know where. We can look her up.
Story time. King Kong Kid Story Time. Yes, I read one of hers called Thury Go Looking.
Okay, yeah.
But this is like the Christmas section from 4 different books.
Right. And just so anyone listening, Storytime is another part of our YouTube channel where you actually read chapter books and show pictures, have it out loud. We can link to Storytime, put that in the bottom. So
that'd be great.
If you have kids or you want to read books and stories, or just, I know we've actually received some messages from people, I think in South Carolina, saying they use it for part of their homeschooling.
Yeah.
And so, if you want a kid to hear a story and you read it to them and show them pictures, we'll put a link to that. And we can help that out too. That'd be good.
Yeah. So, fun collection. I picked this one up because I knew her.
Yes.
and thought would be fun to have a Christmas selection.
So what type of stories are in this collection? Are they standard stories or just ones that she's written?
No, they're ones that she's written.
Okay.
And some of them have actual roots in her memory.
Right. Okay.
They're not necessarily autobiographical.
Right.
But because she was there.
There's a title that says Christmas in Morocco. So like
right.
I'm assuming part of her missionary family was to be in Morocco. So some of that flavor comes out in what she remembers.
Right.
Oh, right. Very nice.
So,
very nice.
They are stories about Christmas, but not about the first Christmas.
Yes. Yeah, I think that's great.
Yeah.
I think it's very good. I like that. There's 4 of them.
There's 4.
Very good.
And the last one, the Oxford Christmas Storybook.
Interesting.
So, 20 plus years ago in my old church, we did, the Sunday school did Babushka.
Yes.
That story. And I had gotten the book from the library.
Okay.
I went back to the library and they no longer had it.
Oh, no.
So I had to find a copy. I love the story of Babushka.
Yeah, it was a good story.
Because it's so us. You know, the 3 wise men come to her house. They're on their way to Bethlehem. And they tell her about the star. And they say, oh, come. Why don't you come with us?
Yeah.
She's like, well, but I have to clean my house. I don't have a gift. 18 different excuses. And then when she finally gets them all, it snows overnight.
Oh, and she can't go.
And she can't. It covers over their footsteps.
So she can't follow them.
She doesn't know where they are.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a good story. I remember that. It's a very good story.
So this one is fun because it has a whole bunch of different stories by different people.
Okay.
And it has these beautiful pictures of the original Christmas story.
Oh, yeah.
Between the sections.
It looked like in the table of contents it goes in order of the Christmas story, but then gives little stories to go with it. Like
that's right.
Like it's a section on Mary and the Angel, a section on the journey, a section on the shepherds, but then there's stories within that.
That's right, by all kinds of different people. Whereas this one, they're all by the same person.
Yeah, this is multiple authors that they've gathered.
Multiple authors that stories that they've put together. So it's fun, and I was looking at this one last night. It's called The Rebellious Christmas Pudding.
The Rebellious Christmas Pudding.
Yes.
Very nice.
Because it talks about Christmas in England when Christmas was outlawed.
Oh, okay.
But the people didn't want to give up Christmas.
Of course not.
So they would do it secretly. But the problem is, one of the things that goes with Christmas in England is plum pudding, which takes hours to steam. And it smells. And
everyone knows.
Right.
Yes.
So what do you do? So this basically...
it's a humorous story about that,
I'm sure. Yes. Yeah. So the plum pudding, the soldiers are coming, so they hide it outside. Yeah. And it gathers snow and it goes rolling, and the little boy across the street, oh, look, this is perfect for the top of my snowman.
Yes.
But then it's still warm, so it's melting. And
that's a very interesting story, and you follow it along.
Until the end, when the sergeant of the soldiers is so frustrated that he says, fire on them. So they pick up what they thought was a cannonball and put it in the cannon, and then, of course, it explodes plum pudding everywhere. Oh. And everyone is so excited, and even the soldiers join in, except for the sergeant.
Of course, the sergeant is all upset.
But, yes.
Yeah, so that's a fun story. I see it. Yeah, very nice.
So, yes.
You can have fun with that with the children.
You can.
That's for sure.
You can.
That's for sure.
And there's one on Ireland and some of the tradition.
Yeah.
It's a fairy tale, but it gives you a sense of what the traditions are in Iceland, and
I had some historic sense of those things. I like that.
Yeah.
Oh, that's very nice. I never heard of that collection of stories. Oh, that's pretty good. Yeah. Well, I have a couple books here. I'll save my best one for last.
Oh, okay.
I'll put it that way. This one's called Christmas, the Rest of the Story. It's actually a very interesting collection. This I would place towards if you've been reading with your children, different Christmas stories, and they're getting a little older. Mm-hmm. And you can use this because what it says, it gives some Christmas stuff, but then it goes into the actual life of Christ. And like it's the rest of the story. Christmas is the beginning of a story.
Sure.
And so you can see that like here, he has what happens, but then there's the census and the manger, and it'll actually move on to other places and what happened to him. And there's some historical things that happens out of the churches and the Coptic churches.
Oh, nice.
But they're all little stories about that. And then there's questions that you can talk about and ponder. Opening scripture.
Very nice illustrations. Beautifully
illustrated. And what's nice is, it's long, so you don't have to do the whole thing, but you could read a section, read a small section. Mm-hmm. So you see that's like 2 pages there. Sure. And then there's questions to ponder. That's why I say the kids are a little older. They've been reading some stories with you, and you say, hey, let's just read one of these, mm-hmm. and let's ask a couple questions. Let's talk about it. I like that they give us questions or things to kind of launch off of. And ideas to go with that. Mm-hmm. They explain, there's a lot of explanation in here, which kids like. There's questions that you might ask or kids might ask. How did the Magi travel? And they kind of talk about that. It's kind of like an appendix for what does all this mean,
Oh, yeah.
Herod,
have you ever wondered?
Yeah, and it talks about these things. The house in Nazareth and questions. And so you kind of walk through all of these in a very interesting way. The expense of their gifts, the use of their gifts. I like near the end it's talking about the use of their gifts. But as you see here, it actually leads eventually to the cross itself, and talks about that as well, what happens in Christ. This is a longer part of the story, the real purpose of Christmas. So it ends with the real purpose of Christmas, which is the crucifixion, the death, and resurrection of Christ. Mm-hmm. And so it walks through that as well, because you can't have Christmas without the death and resurrection of Christ in his life. Yeah. And so it pieces you through that. And I love that it does that. I love how it processes the whole thing through there. But I would say, personally, the kids need to be a little older. Yeah. It takes a little more time. They're familiar with the story already, but now it's kind of like, how do we dive deeper? And there's so many of these. I wouldn't go through all these in one season. This would take forever, wouldn't? But let's pick and choose one from each section. Yeah, I'll pick and choose one from each section, and we read, and let's talk about it. Maybe every couple of days or something like that, and walk through that. But that's this older book. Mm-hmm. I like it a lot. None of these books I think I found. I think they were all given. I don't know the authors. I don't know anything. They're just surprises in our world. That's how I see them. The surprises.
Serendipity.
Very much so. This one's a humorous book, and I like it a lot. It's called The Last Straw by Frederick H. Thury, if you say that correctly.
That's a great picture on the front.
It's a great picture of a camel. And it's a story of this old camel. His name is Hash Makaka. So it's quite a name. But he's an old camel, and there's all these young camels around him, and he's tired of this. And then, but there's this... They hear of this birth, and we need someone to take it, and he doesn't want to go, but they honor him with that, and the young camels kind of goad him a little bit, like, can you really do this? And he starts to make this journey. But as he makes his journey, and his aching knees, and his this, and everything, they begin to stop on the journey, and people begin to bring more gifts. And they load more gifts, and they load more gifts, and they put them on him. Goats come to him, and we give him the goat milk, and give him this, and so you'll see, like, it starts to, like, load up on him as you go through that, and more people and animals bring gifts to him, and he's just over and over again, and he's so tired, and he talks about his knees so much, and the young camels are like, oh, he's kind of, goading him into this, and then, the end is, like, this little kid just bringing this little carved trinket, and eventually he does say, I can do this, even though he's had nothing else. I can't do anything else. Yeah. And when he finally stumbles, he stumbles at the manger scene. And the beautiful part of it is in the manger scene, all of his aches and pains go away because he reaches down and the hand of Jesus touches him. Oh. So it's a beautiful little humorous story of everyone bringing gifts, but this understanding when he gets there, this is why it was so important. He didn't get it till he saw the Christ child. This is why it was so important. It's a very non-traditional Christmas story.
So it's not the straw that broke the camel's back.
That's not the straw. It almost is the straw that broke the camel's back. But it's a fun story. We like to read that. I think even as the kids get older, we like to read that. It was just funny. What's it going to go play it about now? It's going to do this now. And when you read, you try and like make the camel sound older.
Oh, yeah.
Have fun with that. I like to have fun with that.
I do too.
This is my favorite Christmas book of all time. It's not the Christmas story. It's the Christmas book. This is called The Christmas Miracle of Johnathan Toomey.
Nice.
The artwork is phenomenal in it. The story is really, really good. It's set in the U.S., probably in the 1800s. And Johnathan Toomey is a woodworker. You find out he's a woodworker. And he's widowed. His wife and his young child died on a journey, as they were journeying into the Wild West. And so the story is of this woodworker who grumbles and hates Christmas and all of this type of time. And then, very bitter. You can see in the first picture, you see him hunched over and he's bitter, but he does these things. And people didn't like it. He complained when the church bells rang. Like there's just gruff complaining, I can't do anything. But everyone knows he's the best woodworker in the area, carving animals, carving most lifelike things and what he does. And then the story is, as he contemplates and he's sad, knocking on his door comes a lady and her son who have made a similar journey to him and have landed in this town, but they can't find their nativity scene. It didn't come with them. It's missing, the special one, blah, blah, blah. And can you do it? Can you have it ready for Christmas? She is widowed as well. Very interesting story. And finally he agrees, but he doesn't agree as to when it's time. When it's ready is what he says. Very, And so
classic artist.
she shows up and she comes in checking on him and brings her son, who's the squirmy, wants to move, inquisitive, and he wants to work in peace.
Kind of like you?
Yes, kind of like me. He's very much like, what's going on? What are you doing? I can sit quietly and each picture of her coming, different things happen. She always brings a gift of us, biscuits or a cake, something, and she'll sit in the corner. But the son starts to do things like show me how to carve, show me how to do this. But when he makes an animal or he makes something, the son says something like, "Those are really nice." I'll see if I can find it. It says, "Those are really nice sheep or really nice whatever." But then he says, "Here he goes." The woodcarver glared at Thomas and then shrugged his shoulders and grunted. And Thomas decided it meant yes, so he went on. And he said, "Is that my sheep you're carving?" The woodcarver nodded and grunted again. After another long time, Thomas whispered, "Mr. Toomey, excuse me, but you're carving my sheep wrong." The widow McDowell's knitting needles stopped clicking. Johnathan Toomey's knife stopped carving. Thomas went on, "It's a beautiful sheep, nice and curly, but my sheep looked happy." And that's pish posh, says Mr. Toomey. "Sheep are sheep that cannot look happy." "Mine did," answered Thomas. "They knew they were with baby Jesus, so they were happy." And so, he fluffs it off, but then the scene, it finishes somewhere in there where then he spends the rest of the night staring and working on the sheep. And this happens over and over again with different parts. And even down to the baby and the mother Jesus. And at some point in there, he struggles with his loss. He's a widow.
Sure.
And he does pull out an old picture of his wife and his young child and uses that to carve the virgin and the baby. And so there's this whole thing. And they show up on Christmas Day to him. And as you move along through the story, the gruff woodcarver is a little more put together, doesn't have as many crumbs in his beard, and will sit there. And it's a complete change and transformation. And then he receives a gift from the kid because he had shown the kid some things. So the kid actually carved him a bird. And the story is just great because in the end, there's joy with all of them. And you can see here he is at the end with that. Everything goes on from there. But it is a wonderfully written story, and the layers of, just like, like the widow's knitting needles stop clicking, and my children may not pick up all of that, but you as a parent, you're like, there's so many pieces just in that little section I read. You're like, whoa, there's a lot of layers to the loss and the pain and the healing. And the kid kept saying, because this is with Jesus, because they feel this, they know this, and so the different aspects of feelings he puts to their animals, or the wise men, or the shepherd. That doesn't look like the right, you're doing it wrong.
Classic child.
Very
right?
Classic child, but understanding the sense of the sheep look happy because they're with Jesus. You can't just carve a normal sheep. It has to, something has to make it look happy. And an artist should know how to do that. And of course he does. But I have loved this story over and over again. I'll probably read it again, to my children who are teenagers. I don't care. They don't care either. So, it's just a good story. And it can be, sometimes I get emotional. It can be pretty emotional reading it. And I love it. Non-traditional, I think we each picked stuff that is not just the reading of the Christmas story. I think that's important. Open the scripture, read the Christmas story, but this is more the effect of the Christmas story and how it can mean something to us in many different layers and ways. And so I have loved this, and it doesn't hurt that the illustrations are really, really good.
That's right.
It's
a joy to look at as well as to read.
It's very much a joy to look at as well as to read. And I don't know the author, I don't know the illustrator, I don't know any of these things, but I know however we ended up with this book, it's a good thing. It's a very good thing. So that's my Christmas books. I only have 3. So
that's okay.
It's okay. I could have brought more, but I think these were the 3 that really kind of stuck out. Right. This one always sticks out. That's like the first one on my mind every time. Mm-hmm. But yeah, so we can list these books down in the comments for people.
Yeah.
If there's Christmas stories or books that you like to read with your children, please. Or just for yourself, let us know. We would love to hear them and know about them. I think that would be quite a joy. But
because another one I thought of was A Christmas Carol by Charles Dickens. The
Christmas Carol is always a classic, and it's good to have.
I love Dickens, so
that's another very, very good one. So there's one written by Jan Karen, because she follows At Home Mitford series, and they have one that's around Christmas. Very well done.
Shepherds Abiding.
I think it's called Shepherds Abiding. It's all of her stories are really
they are.
So I quite enjoy those. But if you have books or stories, share them with us. We can share with others. We'd love to hear about them.
Yep, and I would say that thriftbooks.com is a great resource for books, because they have a gazillion. They come in a good way, and as long as you order $15, the shipping is free.
I like that.
So
that works.
Yeah.
Yeah, and you get all types of books that way.
Yes.
That is good. Well, I hope you guys have a very good Christmas and enjoy time with family, with friends. Get out some reading if you can. We're going to take next week off, and so we'll be back in 2 weeks.
Next year.
Yeah, we'll see you next year. So take some time to celebrate, take some time to be quiet, and we will see you next year. Have a good year.
God bless.